Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove, and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to dietary nutrition, training, and supplementation that I've received over the past 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, training program, supplement protocol, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can also DM me your questions at fitcosgrove_. As a reminder, we also have an online app that you can register for, which includes all the training programs and nutritional plans that I've designed over the past 20 years. If you'd like more information on that app, you can contact our office administrator, Mia Watson, at mia@foreverfitperformance.com. All right, so let's get started with this week's No Filter Q&A with question number 1. Nick, have you ever had a client ghost you before? I have. I've actually had, I think, probably about 2 or 3 clients ghost me before. And I didn't take it personally because, these are online clients and I was working with them on primarily their nutritional plan. And that tends to happen I don't want to say often actually, but it does happen from time to time because if I'm working with someone online as opposed to in person, there's not as much accountability. And so what happens is people fall off the diet plan. Diet is much harder than training for sure, 100%. A lot of people, they'll go to the gym every day, but they shit the bed on their diet, right? So it's really hard to stay motivated and focused on your diet 24/7. My job as a coach, though, is to be available to my online clients 24/7 if they need me. Unfortunately, there's always been a few, not always, but there has been a few people over time that just, they couldn't stay on the plan for other reasons, had nothing to do with the diet itself. It could be, they were dealing with personal issues, they were dealing with work-related issues, they were dealing with family issues, and they fell off the diet. They felt bad, they felt guilty, and then I just didn't hear from them again. So that has happened. I would say it's probably happened in the past, I'd say 15 years since I started online training. It's probably happened about 3 or 4 times. And again, I never took it personally. I know people have other things going on in their lives, and trying to stay on a very regiment diet plan is very difficult to do, especially when you have outside factors, right? It's not easy to do that. Unless you can live in a bubble 24/7 and just focus on your training and your diet, living the bodybuilding lifestyle, that might be a little bit easier, but the reality is most people can't do that. So it has happened. I've had people ghost me before, but also come back to me a few months later and say, look, I'm really sorry, I had things going on in my life. And again, it's business. I never take it personally. I try my best to hold my clients accountable for the weekly check-ins. But at the same time, when you're working with someone online versus working with them in person, there is that difference of holding accountability. And it's really hard for a lot of people to stay accountable on a diet versus staying accountable on their workouts. Staying accountable on your workouts is much easier because you have a scheduled session with your personal trainer. You show up on time. You go to the gym as part of your daily routine. Maybe it's on your way to the office. Maybe it's on your way home from the office. But it's much easier to stay accountable for your training program than it is on your diet plan. So it has happened. I'm sure it'll happen again. I mean, I get a lot of new clients that are working online on a monthly basis. A lot of people come in fully committed. And, it's hard. It's really hard to stay focused and on track on a diet, especially in the summer. But I would say overall, most people, they stay fairly committed to the plan and they have great success. But there are a few people that fall off the wagon, and that does happen. And yeah, I don't hear from them for a few months, but then every so often they come back and say, okay, I'm ready to start again. So it does happen. So yes, have I been ghosted from clients before? Yes, I have been. Never from any clients in person, but online it has happened. Again, don't take it personal. It's just business. All right, next question. Question 2. Hi, Nick. What are your thoughts about Orange Theory? Well, it's interesting because I just wrote a blog this week about weekly small group fitness classes, actually. And as far as Orange Theory is concerned, I shouldn't comment on Orange Theory myself because I've actually never attended an Orange Theory class. So it wouldn't be fair of me to critique or to pass judgment or to recommend Orange Theory because I've never done it. What I can say, though, for any and all group fitness classes, and this is what I mentioned in my weekly blog. If you haven't checked out my weekly blog, it just was released on our website this past Wednesday. It's that the group fitness classes are starting to get more and more heavily diluted, in my opinion. Okay. And I'm seeing a lot of this. This one size fits all copy and paste programs, class pass, drop into random group classes. Look, this is nonsense. If you're serious about your health and you're serious about your fitness, you want to work with an experienced, knowledgeable, and reputable trainer. Now, there are reputable and knowledgeable and experienced trainers that actually teach group classes. I'm one of them. But to work in one of those classes, there are a few factors that you have to actually take into consideration to join. One is that we don't do classes that are like $20 drop-ins. We also don't just do drop-ins. You know, all people are scheduled for our group classes because we want to know who's coming to our classes. We want to make sure that even though this is a group class, it's customized. So the problem I have with a lot of these large group classes is they're not customized and they let anybody and everybody in. And this is what I was talking about in my blog. This really dilutes the service. And, you know, letting 30 people into a group class, especially when there's weights involved and you're doing very complex movements, Jesus, you're asking for an injury. And I mentioned this again in my blog is that, you know, one mishap that can cause all the difference between a chronic injury and an acute injury. If you have, let's say, 15 people in a group class and you're training with weights, there's no way that one instructor can correct everyone's form. That's impossible, especially if that instructor doesn't know who's coming to the class. And that's the problem I have with this ClassPass app. I would never do ClassPass app. I want to know who's coming to my class. I want to know a whole health history on them. I want to know if, first of all, if they're actually physically fit to do my class. If they're not, I'll recommend a few private training sessions to them first. So that was my major issue with group classes. Now, I'm not trying to single out Orange Theory here. Again, I don't know what Orange Theory is about. But again, I want to make sure every single person that comes to my group fitness class, I know them. I know their name, I know their health history, I know their physical limitations, and I know what their goals are. So I can customize the program for them. Another thing that we do in our group classes, we don't allow more than 8 participants per class. Right? We do charge a little bit more for our classes per person, but there's a reason for that. So we can provide a more higher quality service. Okay. So as far as Orange Theory is concerned, I know the gist of it. It's a combination of cardiovascular and resistance training exercises. I think as long as they keep the exercises very simple, they don't create complex movements, it could be okay. But if you're asking me personally, if I would join a class that had, let's say, 10 plus people in it, one trainer, and it's constantly rotating the trainers for that class, if I would join it, absolutely not. No, I think that's pure garbage. And again, you get what you pay for. So if you're someone who's paying $10, $15 for a group class, you're honestly going to get the service that you're paying for, and you're going to get the results, the same results. They're not going to be very good results because it's a one size copy and paste program. Again, there's no experienced, knowledgeable, reputable personal trainer that's going to teach a cheap group fitness class. I don't know any, and I know a lot of trainers. I know a lot of good trainers. I don't know any of them that would teach a class that they're getting paid nothing for, right? So that's why I recommend if you're going to join a group fitness class, join a class that puts a cap on participants, does not allow just random drop-ins to come in through an app. You actually have to sign up for your class ahead of time. You have to provide 24 hours notice if you're going to cancel, and you have that same trainer from week to week. Obviously, there's going to be times when that trainer might not be able to make the session. He or she is on vacation, family obligations, so on. But for the most part, you have the same instructor week to week. So if you're looking for a group fitness class to join, that's the criteria that I would be recommending to look for. Don't just drop into one of those one-size-fits-all group fitness classes. All right. Next question. Nick, would you date a woman who doesn't work out? I think I've covered this before. I have dated women that don't work out, and that doesn't really bother me. I've dated women that run. I have dated women that do Pilates, they do yoga. They don't necessarily like doing resistance training. That's fine. As long as they're doing something active, right? That's what's important to me, someone who is active, because I don't personally want to surround myself with people who sit on the couch, watch TV, and eat, chips, popcorn at night. That's not my lifestyle. So why would I date someone who does that? They don't need to necessarily work out with weights. But again, I think for me personally, I want to be with somebody who is active, who wants to go for walks, who wants to be physically active, go for a bike ride around the seawall or go swimming. Like those are things that I enjoy doing. So that's probably the type of person that I would be attracted to. Again, though, they don't necessarily need to do weight training. I have dated people that do weight training as well, but that's not something that I look for in a partner. I think it's more important. You have to have some common grounds for sure. But I definitely want someone who would take care of themselves. Absolutely. That's very important. But again, it doesn't have to be through weights. It could be yoga, it could be Pilates, could be gymnastics, just something that that keeps them active and they enjoy doing. You know, your physical health is so important. And I really believe that if you're hanging around people who, you know, they live that party lifestyle scene, or they want to come home and just pop themselves on the couch and watch TV and open up a bottle of wine, you know, you could easily fall into the influence of doing that yourself. Again, there's nothing wrong with doing that from time to time, but that's something that happens on a daily basis. That's nothing that interests me. So to answer that question, have I ever dated someone who doesn't work out? I've dated a few people who have not worked out with weights, absolutely. But would I ever date someone who is not taking care of themselves on their fitness level, being physically active? No, that wouldn't interest me whatsoever. Okay. Hi, Nick. How do pro bodybuilders eat so much yet stay so lean during their contest prep? I'm a natural bodybuilder and have to diet super strict just to lose 1 pound. Okay, so big elephant in the room. Professional bodybuilders, I would say the majority of them use anabolic steroids. In combination with those anabolic steroids, they're also using human growth hormone. Now, one of the things with human growth hormone, it actually can speed up your metabolism. Now, when you combine that with extra muscle mass, you're going to have a metabolism that is just on fire all day long. So you've got these bodybuilders who are walking around at, say, 230, 250 pounds, some of them 300 pounds in the off season. That's a lot of muscle mass. You combine the HGH, the human growth hormone, on top of that, their metabolism is just like a furnace. It's constantly burning calories. So this is why it's so important that if you're following a professional bodybuilder who is obviously using anabolic steroids, that you don't necessarily follow the same nutritional plan as that particular person. I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong. I mean, they're doing that for their sport. But if you're a natural bodybuilder, it'd be ridiculous for you to follow the same nutritional plan as an enhanced bodybuilder. So that's usually the reason as to why most of these guys can get away with consuming so many calories pre-contest. Now, if you are a natural bodybuilder or not even a bodybuilder, let's just say you're a natural athlete, the reality is no, unless you have an incredibly fast metabolism, you're not going to be able to consume an abundance amount of calories. That's not going to happen. You can't diet for a show on 500 carbs a day and get super lean unless you have this incredibly fast metabolism naturally, which is very rare. Even myself personally, in my last few years of competing as a natural lifter, I had to go sometimes as low as like 50 carbs a day just to lose that extra half a pound. It was brutal. I had no energy. So that's the reason why most of these guys can get away with eating the way they do. Don't forget too, most professional bodybuilders are doing anywhere from 90 minutes to 2 hours of cardio a day as well. So that helps burn those calories. But for the most part, it's a combination of the drugs, the fact that they have so much muscle mass, and in addition to the cardio that they're doing, that's why they're able to get away with so many calories. For a natural lifter, though, I would not recommend consuming that many calories if you're trying to get contest prep ready. And this is why it's so important to work with a good, knowledgeable coach who can assess your physique and assess your progress as you go. Again, if you're someone who just has a naturally fast metabolism, you might be able to get away with that. But in my experience, in the past 20 plus years working with people, helping them getting ready for bodybuilding, bikini competitions, if they're natural, I have to diet them down to very little carbohydrates, moderate fats, and high protein. And that usually will help get them into the shape that they need to get to that stage. Okay, so again, if you're someone who's natural, I wouldn't necessarily recommend following the same protocol as someone who's enhanced. All right. Next question. Hi, Nick. I saw your building in the news. Is it true that both elevators are not working now? I had 5 clients send me a link earlier today and yesterday with regards to my building being in the Vancouver Sun, and I think it was also on Global News. So yes, my building right now that I live in, both elevators. We have 2 elevators in the building. Neither of them are working. So the first elevator went down back in March. That wasn't such a big deal. We still had 1 working elevator. The problem was the last working elevator, the only working elevator, actually went down early last week. So we've been living with no elevators at all for about close to 2 weeks now. Yeah, about 2 weeks. So what's happened during that time is they've asked for volunteers to help the elderly people and people who, they have kids or something, help them with their grocery bags going up the stairs. So I didn't volunteer. My concierge volunteered me to work from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and helping people take their groceries up the stairs, which has been a really good exercise for me, because when I come home, I usually come home around 4 p.m. and there's already people waiting in the lobby for assistance with their groceries. And some of these people live on the 17th and 18th floor. There's 20 floors in my building. So there's a lot of people who live high up. So I've been doing that from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's been my cardio for the last close to 2 weeks now. They haven't given us an ETA as to when our elevator should be fixed. It's pretty brutal, though. I think we're actually the only building in Vancouver right now that both our elevators are not working. So it's been pretty brutal, especially with the heat wave that's been going on here in Vancouver. It's been really hot. My shirt's drenched. I actually had to change my shirt twice when I'm doing these loads from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Because every time I go up, I help people with their groceries. I come back down, there's more people, because people know there's certain time slots where people like myself will help them with their groceries. So it hasn't been fun. And I think it's kind of funny that it's in the news now. I'm sure someone from Strata or someone from my building leaked it. And then, yeah, Vancouver Sun was all over that. But yeah, so that's the situation right now. They have no ETA as to when the elevators will be fixed. I've lived in this building for 12 years now, and I've never really had any issues. This is the first issue, but it's been a major issue. There's been a major pain in the ass for a lot of people. Not so bad for me. I mean, I don't live on a super high floor. I'm on the 13th floor. It's not such a problem for me. But again, helping people with their groceries who, live on the 17th floor, 18th floor, that's been a little bit problematic. So, but good exercise, and it is what it is. I mean, what can you do, right? And don't complain. Just keep going, moving forward, and help those who obviously maybe not be as physically fit as you. And just do your best. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm just grateful that it hasn't impacted my life that severely yet. If this is still going on 3 months from now, I might have a different attitude towards it. All right. Next question. Okay. Hi, Nick. Can you please explain as to why dairy is not good to consume on a diet plan? My boyfriend is convinced that your body needs dairy in order to build muscle. Your boyfriend is wrong. Your body does not need dairy to build muscle. Okay. The only times in our life that I believe we truly need dairy is when we're infants. And that's honestly the only time to help build and replenish our bones and our muscle storage at that age. But what I find happens with dairy, especially with most people I work with, dairy slows down the digestive process, makes people constipated, makes people bloated. I see this all the time with people who consume dairy. As soon as I eliminate dairy from their diet, all the bloating, all the constipation just goes away. No problem. And I truly believe that the majority of people are lactose intolerant, myself included. I used to be addicted to milk. I would drink at least 1 liter of milk a day, sometimes 2 liters of milk a day in my 20s. As soon as I got rid of dairy, man, I felt so much better. So I really believe that dairy slows down the digestive process. And as I mentioned, it makes people feel bloated, makes people feel sluggish. So I don't recommend putting dairy on a nutritional plan. Now, if someone says to me that they love to have cheese, for example, then I say save it for a cheat meal. Have it once a week. No problem. That's not going to do any damage. But for the most part, I don't advise any of my clients to have dairy. I never include dairy on a nutritional plan. I feel that dairy has no nutritional value whatsoever, unless, of course, as I mentioned, if you're an infant, right? Baby. But other than that, no. If you want to build muscle, solid lean muscle, absolutely you do not need dairy. No. There's no studies that show that at all. Bodybuilders have been building muscle for years without dairy. If you look at the average bodybuilding diet, rarely, if ever, will you see dairy unless it's in a cheat meal. You're not going to see it. Okay, because we know so much more now about nutritional science. Back in like the 70s, for example, back in Arnold's day, Well, actually, you know what? Even Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't consume dairy, but back in his day, a lot of bodybuilders would drink milk, but they didn't know much about nutritional science. Fast forward to today's generation of bodybuilders and nutritional experts and nutritionists, dietitians. We know more about dietary nutrition now. We know that dairy has little to no value whatsoever. Even if you look at the Canada Health Food Guidelines now, they've lowered the amount of dairy intake drastically. In my opinion, it's still too high, though. You don't need that much dairy, if any dairy. So if I'm working with someone, do I include dairy on their plan? No. If they like it so much, I'll say save it for a cheat meal. Have your yogurt, have your cheese, have whatever, your milk. Save it for a cheat meal. You don't need dairy to build muscle. Absolutely not. There's no studies that ever have shown or proved that. All right. Next question. Hi, Nick. I was wondering as to how long you think I should wait to return to the gym after delivering my son. My doctor tells me I can return when I feel ready, but I was wondering if you recommend a certain time frame to your clients post-pregnancy. I don't recommend a particular or specific time frame to most of my clients. It's the same thing like your doctor said. You kind of have to go by how you feel. One of my clients, I remember a few years ago, she delivered her first son, and she was back in the gym 7 days later. I mean, she felt great. She was back in the gym. Her husband was looking after the baby when she'd come to see me. I train her husband as well, so they would take shifts. And then when she had her second son, I think same thing. She was back again a week later. So it really depends on the individual, how fast your recovery time is, right? But there's no specific timeline that I say, okay, well, hey, it's been 1 month, you should be getting back in the gym. No, it depends. It varies from person to person, obviously. But I agree with your doctor. You kind of have to base it on how you feel. If you're feeling like, I feel like I'm ready to go, or just start with some light weights again, I would say you can start back as easily as like my client did within 7 to 14 days. If you feel like you need a little longer time to recover, do it. One of the things I obviously can't compare the two, but the only thing I can think of is when I had my appendix surgery done 2 years ago, the doctors told me that I had to wait 8 weeks to lift anything more than 5 pounds. I mean, I was back in the gym 3 days later helping clients lift their own weights up off, like for lift offs or for spots or lifting dumbbells off the floor that were 50 plus pounds. And then 3 weeks later, I was back doing my own workouts. And I would say by week number 2 in the gym, I was lifting all my weights again. So even though there's recommended guidelines, I think, those are very generic guidelines. And I think it really varies from a case to case sequence as what's going on with the person, their health history, how easily the delivery was, those are all factors to take into consideration. So no specific timeline. Go back when you feel you're ready. And I would say, if when you go back to the gym, make sure that you just, monitor, you have to kind of look at your workouts, and, you have to modify them accordingly. You might not be able to lift as much weight, or you might not be able to do certain exercises that you were able to do before pregnancy, right? Or during pregnancy. And that's fine. Just take your time getting back into shape again, right? And again, most of my clients who have delivered actually stayed with me up until pretty much the delivery date. So they were already in shape. So taking a 2-3 week time frame off from the gym wasn't a big deal. It's like going on vacation. They come back and they're ready to train again. So you really have to, see how you feel. I agree with your doctor, though. Wait until you feel like you're ready to return to the gym. And when you are ready to return, modify your workouts accordingly. If there's something that doesn't feel right, don't do it. Keep your weights light for the first week or two, and then adjust as you progress. All right. Next question. Hi, Nick. I just watched Pumping Iron, great movie, the other day, and saw Arnold talking about training twice a day while he prepared for his competitions. Isn't this overtraining, though? Yeah, by today's standards, it would be considered overtraining. But you have to remember, and I mentioned this just earlier, back in Arnold's day, they didn't have the nutritional science or the training science that we have available to us today. So they didn't know. They were kind of pioneers in this industry. Bodybuilding back in the 1970s was a cult sport. People would look at these guys as freaks, monsters. They were not some people to look up to. And then as we enter into the mid 80s with the Stallones and then Arnold's movies and the action movies, muscle became more popular. So people started to take a little bit more interest in nutritional science, dietary nutrition, training protocols, supplement protocols. So we know a lot more now than they did back in the 70s. So in Arnold's defense, I mean, they didn't really know much back then. So they thought, of course, hey, if I'm going to train more, I'm going to get better results. Now we know that that's actually counterproductive. And we know that if you train, the more you train, like when I'm saying twice a day training, which most people don't do now anyways, but the more you train, the less results you're going to achieve because your body is essentially going to go into a catabolic state. It's going to be overtrained, overrun, burnt out. You're not going to actually be able to build and grow muscle. Now, for most people, they don't have to worry about that. Most people should be concerned about just getting their ass to the gym 3 to 4 times a week. Most people can't even manage to get to the gym once a week. But for someone who's an avid lifter or someone who's a professional competitor or an amateur competitor and thinks, hey, you know what, maybe I should do what Arnold did back in his day, I would not advise doing that. I'm pretty sure Arnold would agree with that now. I don't now that they know more now. I think he would even say, no, I was overtraining. If you look at Arnold's physique compared to the guys today, and this is not a knock on Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time, but he wouldn't even place top 10 at a professional show. He wouldn't. And that's just because the training technology has advanced so much over the past 3-4 decades, whether it's the drugs, whether it's the exercises, whether it's the dietary nutrition. It's a combination really of all three. It's advanced so much. So that's not a knock on Arnold. It's just we know more now, right? So I would not advise anyone to train twice a day. There's been times that I've done that, but that's more because, I might not be able to train for 2 or 3 days due to schedule conflicts. So I might throw in 2 workouts in one day because I know I'm going to take the next 2 days off from training. So I don't feel like I'm overtraining if I do that. And plus, I might say do shoulders in the AM and do legs in the PM, and then I might take 2 days off in a row. So my body gets enough time to recover. But regardless if you're trying to put on muscle or you're just trying to get in shape, lose fat, I would not recommend going to the gym twice a day. Unless one of those sessions is a weight training session and one of those trainings is a cardio training session, fine, I'm fine with that. But I would not recommend doing 2 weight training sessions in one day. Unless you're in a situation like I am and you're going to be taking 2 to 3 days off from the gym, I see no problem with that every so often. But don't make it a weekly habit doing that, every day of the week. I would not recommend that. You're going to overtrain yourself. You're going to suffer from adrenal fatigue, burnout, and you know what? Your body will just go into a catabolic state and you'll actually lose muscle. All right. Next question. Good questions today. Hey, Nick, are Quest protein bars okay to eat? They're really low in carbs and sugar. They are low in carbs and they are low in sugar, but one of the reasons I don't recommend Quest protein bars for most people is they're also very high in sweeteners and they're also very high in processed ingredients. Sorry, my alarm's going off. So there are, on occasion, I will include a Quest protein bar in a nutritional plan. I have done it in the past for a few of my clients, but I always put in notes, if you can have a meal, preferably have a meal over the Quest bar. Now, situations, I have some clients who are in back-to-back meetings all day. All they can get in time-wise is a Quest bar. Go for it. No big deal. But if you have the time to sit down and have an actual meal, that is much more better for you than having a Quest bar. We don't want to have all these sweeteners or all these processed ingredients in our food. We don't want this. We want just clean, natural food sources, contain good complex carbohydrates, good healthy fats, lean protein sources. So are Quest protein bars bad for you? I'm not going to say they're bad for you, but they're not comparable to food. Okay, they're a supplement for food if you cannot get food in you. If you're on a time crunch, if you're in back-to-back meetings, let's say you're flying and the only thing you can get in you is a Quest bar, absolutely do it. But I would not recommend it for those reasons. The processed ingredients, the added sweeteners, guys, they're not comparable. And this goes back to what I always say, if something can have a shelf life for 3 to 5 years and not go bad, and you can just eat it without having to cook it, I wouldn't trust that. I mean, look at oatmeal, for example. Yeah, that has a long shelf life, but I mean, you have to cook it. You can't just eat it raw, right? So it's not comparable. And even oatmeal goes bad eventually. So when people tell me they're having protein shakes and these protein bars and they're supplementing for the foods, but then they bitch and complain about their lack of results, why they can't build muscle or lose fat, I say, well, you're not putting good, wholesome food sources in you. and you need to do that. Okay. And this comes back down to what I've always talked about, which is not just the macronutrients, but the micronutrients, the quality of the food sources that you're consuming. So to say that a Quest bar is comparable to, let's say, some brown rice and chicken breasts, or quinoa and cod, or salmon and sweet potato, that's laughable. They're not comparable at all. They're not even close. If you have to do it, you do it as a last resort, but ideally, natural food source, best way to go. All right, guys. Okay, let's get to our last question of the day. Hi, Nick. What would you consider to be worse, smoking weed every day or having a few drinks each week? Ooh, that's a tough question to answer. Okay, as someone who doesn't smoke weed, and as someone who does have, alcoholic beverages on not a daily basis, but I do have a few drinks from week to week. I'd have to say that obviously neither are healthy for you, but I would imagine that honestly, this is my personal opinion. Okay, this is my personal opinion. I know I'm going to probably get a lot of hate on this, but I think having a few drinks each week as opposed to smoking weed every day is probably more beneficial for you, not just on a health standpoint, but more on a mental standpoint. Yes, drinking alcohol is not the greatest thing, of course, but if you're just having a few drinks every so often, so you're having 2 or 3 drinks, maybe 4 drinks a week, I don't really see the harm in that. What I've noticed with a lot of people who tend to smoke a lot of weed is that they get very forgetful, they get very lethargic, and again, not everybody, but a lot of people that I've come across that I've worked with who have they wake up and they smoke weed. I just notice these little things, these little tendencies that they have. They get very forgetful with things they are doing. They come late for meetings. And are they more creative? Possibly. I mean, that's a lot of people say when they smoke weed, they get more creative. But in my experience, working with people who smoke a lot of weed, they get kind of lazy, very forgetful. I've worked with trainers who smoke a lot of weed, and they leave weights out after they train a session with a client. They just walk away. They leave a big mess in behind them, and I'm just like, why would you do that? I'm not blaming the weed. I'm just saying that I notice this with a lot of people who do smoke weed. Don't forget too, I worked in an independent gym for 10 years that had about 30 to 40 trainers working in it. And I would say about at least, 30% of those people smoked weed every day. And those were always the people who would constantly forget to clean up after themselves, or they'd show up 5 minutes late for a session. Again, I'm not blaming marijuana here. I'm just saying these are things that I've noticed. And again, I'll probably get some hate on this. So are either healthy? No. But I'm going to say from productivity standpoint, I think that having a few drinks a week, not every day, but a few drinks a week versus smoking weed every day, I think you're better off going with the alcohol than the weed, personally. Okay, but if you think differently, that's fine. I mean, I know people will probably send me studies, say, look, smoking marijuana is beneficial, it has all these great effects, and I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that in my experience, okay, again, guys, my experience working with women and men who smoke a lot of weed, very forgetful, show up late, kind of lazy, right? That's just my experience. Anyway, guys, this video will be going up on Friday afternoon. As a reminder, if you do have any questions related to your dietary nutrition, training programs, or supplement protocols, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can also DM me on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all. I will see you all next week, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.